Well, the truth is, I'm the director of the Cleveland Tenants Organization, and our organization was actually created in 1975 after the Ohio landlord-tenant law passed. And we have a mission to preserve and expand the supply of safe, decent, affordable, accessible rental property. So while we do a lot of tenant advocacy, it's not all we do. We are a resource for landlords as well. 2010, we have a full-time staff of 8 people, and we have some volunteers and some part-time 11 people. We worked with 45,000 people. And only about 5% of those are landlords, but we are not against landlords. In fact, we want to work with good landlords. The fact that all these landlords are here, you guys are good landlords. Bad landlords don't show up at places like this. So while I am going to give a perspective for tenants, I will offer some practical advice for landlords as well. If you look at Cuyahoga County, close to 40% of households rent. City of Cleveland itself is 55%. That's a lot of renting households. We're the only resource in the state, and one of very few. We're actually the largest in the country that deals specifically with landlord-tenant issues. So just because we're Cleveland Tenants Organization landlords, just please realize that we're a resource for you as well. Mike? Well, because we have 8 staff people and we deal with 45,000 people a year, and that's a process to rename it. Look, we have a good reputation, and we can talk about that after. But okay. 95% of our work is with tenants. Okay. Mike previously touched on the landlord-tenant responsibilities of each under the Ohio Revised Code. Again, the landlord's requirements are to comply with the requirements of all applicable building, housing, health, and safety codes, make all repairs, and keep common areas safe and sanitary. Now, from a tenant's perspective, it sounds like landlords should be responsible for taking care of bed bugs under these regulations. Well, but as State Senator Mike Skindle touched on, bed bugs are not considered vermin. So they are not a health and safety danger. If they're not a health and safety danger, tenants can rent deposit, but there's no case law on what happens. So what can tenants do to urge landlords to treat a bed bug infestation? Now, by infestation, I'm talking about in a double, both units have it, or in a multifamily complex, most people have it. First of all, they should check the local code. In the city of Cleveland itself, Cleveland proper, insect infestations, including bed bug infestations, are a public nuisance. So if a tenant in the city of Cleveland calls the city health department, the city will send an inspector out and they will give the landlord an order to abate the nuisance. Now it's a health and safety issue. A tenant in Cleveland can give the landlord a written notice to take care of the problem within 30 days, and a landlord has to take care of it. And if they don't, then a tenant can exercise their rights under the law, which I'll go through shortly. Anywhere else in Ohio, and Mike touched on this, a tenant should rely on a landlord's duty to keep a property fit and habitable. Okay? Landlord has that duty. What we need to do is have tenants force the issue and have the courts look at this issue and come up with some case law so we have some guidance on the issue that doesn't come from 1930. So how to do it? First of all, a tenant should always provide written notice to their landlord of an issue. If you visit our website at www.clevelandtenants.org, we have sample form letters that tenants can use. It's illegal for a landlord to retaliate against a tenant because they've called a public agency or they've complained about the conditions of the property. So tenants should keep a copy. And look, we aren't doing this to attack landlords. Ideally, you want this to be a partnership. Tenants should be able to communicate with their landlords and should feel comfortable doing so. If the landlord doesn't take care of the problem within 30 days, tenants can actually do a couple things. They can terminate their lease, they can move out, they can deposit their rent with the court. That's what we're asking tenants to do. Put your money into the court, let the court send an inspector out, and let's get some let's get some court decisions on this so people know the process for dealing with bed bugs. Or tenants can file for an order to compel the abatement of the bed bugs. We have, my staff will kill me for this, but You can call our phone number. We're a nonprofit. It's free for landlords and tenants if you have questions about the process. And you can call us at 432-0609. Now, what can landlords do? As Mike spoke about previously, tenants have some responsibilities. They have to keep the part of the premises that they occupy safe and sanitary. They have to dispose of rubbish, garbage, and other waste in a clean, safe, and sanitary manner, and they have to keep their property in a safe and sanitary condition. Now, this part of the law sounds like it's a tenant's responsibility to keep it safe from bed bugs. I didn't mean to confuse landlords and bed bugs. I'm teasing them. Look, so what can a landlord do? If you own a multi-family complex, if you have 40 units and a tenant moves in and they brought bed bugs in, it's still your responsibility under the landlord-tenant law to exterminate and get rid of the problem. But if you believe that that tenant brought it in, you should have the pest company come in or bring a dog in and test the units. And if they can isolate it to a single unit, you can argue that the tenant brought it in and they did not maintain their responsibilities under the landlord-tenant law. That alone may give you a right to charge a tenant or take the money out of their security deposit, at least part of it. If you have a hard time collecting that, you could file in small claims court for up to $3,000 without the assistance of an attorney. There's no case law saying what's the right way to go and who's responsible outside of local ordinances that declare it a public nuisance. So the best thing that you can do is work with your tenants, and tenants work with your landlords. You know, when the landlord-tenant law was written in 74, passed in 75, bed bugs weren't an issue for years. Bed bugs have not been an issue for 50 or 60 years. So it wasn't even a consideration when they wrote the law. So we're encouraging people to use the courts, use the system to figure out what can be done. Even if the General Assembly passes legislation which controls some of the process, the courts are going to have to look at that and implement steps for tenants. So the best advice I can give as an organization that wants to preserve good rental property is, number one, landlords don't threaten to evict tenants for bed bugs. First of all, you probably can't do it, but by doing that, you're encouraging your tenant not to tell you that they have bed bugs. Tenants call us all the time, and they're afraid to go to their landlord and say they have bed bugs. You learned today, the best thing that you can do if there are bed bugs in a unit is find out right away and get rid of them right away. Because once they start spreading eggs, one bed bug can lay like 500 eggs. So you want your tenant to communicate with you. And if there are bed bugs in a complex, you should call your tenants into a meeting and talk to them and let them know. You have to communicate. It's the only way. CMHA has some very good practical steps for dealing with bed bugs. We're getting a lot of calls from CMHA residents because, number one, every property manager is different. Some threaten to evict the tenants. The poor tenants are not going to tell their property manager that they have bed bugs in their unit, because if they get evicted, they're homeless. So there's got to be a good property manager. There has to be communication between the landlord and the tenant.